first time Marcus Thornweave felt the whisper, he was standing in the rain outside the Slaughtered Lamb Tavern in Stormwind's old town. Water ran down the collar of his worn mage robes, and his hands, those hands that had once channeled the clean, bright energies of the arcane, trembled with something that wasn't cold. It was hunger. Raw, desperate hunger for power he no longer possessed. The whisper came like smoke through a crack in reality, curling around his thoughts with promises that tasted like copper and ash. We can give you what you've lost. We can give you more. Marcus had ignored it that first night. He'd stumbled back to his tiny room above the blacksmith's forge, collapsed onto the straw mattress, and convinced himself it was exhaustion playing tricks on his mind. The Kirin Tor had stripped him of his rank 3 months ago after the incident with the experimental summoning. They'd called him reckless, dangerous. They'd severed his connection to the Violet Citadel's ley lines and cast him out like refuse. The second time the whisper came, he was drunk on cheap wine, staring at the arcane focus crystal that no longer glowed in his palm. This time, the voice was clearer, deeper. It spoke in a language that shouldn't have made sense, yet he understood every syllable with perfect, terrible clarity. You were meant for greatness, Marcus Thornweave. They feared your potential. They caged you. But we appreciate ambition. Who are you? Marcus had muttered into the darkness of his room, his words slurring together. The wine bottle slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor, red liquid spreading like blood across the wooden boards. The voice didn't answer with a name. Instead, it showed him visions. In his mind's eye, he saw himself standing atop mountains of flame, green fire cascading from his hands like waterfalls of pure annihilation. He saw demons, twisted, magnificent demons, bowing before him. He saw the magisters who had cast him out, cowering at his feet, begging for mercy he would never grant. He saw power, limitless, intoxicating, absolute power. The third time the whisper came, Marcus answered it. The ritual required blood. The voice had been very specific about that. Not just any blood, his own given freely. The symbolism mattered, it explained in that honeyed, poisonous tone. Free will was the catalyst. The choice had to be his. Marcus found himself in the dead mines, deep in the tunnel systems where even the Defias Brotherhood didn't venture. The walls here were slick with something that wasn't quite water, and the air tasted of copper and decay. He'd brought everything the voice had requested. Black candles made from rendered human fat, purchased from a warlock in the mage quarter who'd asked no questions. Salt, gathered from the shores of Westfall, where a demon had once been banished, still cursed and blackened. And a dagger, simple, unremarkable steel that somehow felt heavier than it should. His hands shook as he arranged the candles in the pattern the voice had shown him. A 7-pointed star, each point representing one of the great demons of the Burning Legion's inner circle. The salt formed a circle around him, protection against nothing because he was inviting damnation in. "I'm ready," Marcus said to the empty cavern. His voice echoed back to him, small and fragile. For a moment, doubt clawed at his chest. This was madness. This was everything the Kirin Tor had taught him to fear and resist. This is transcendence, the voice interrupted his thoughts. This is the power you were always meant to wield. Take the dagger, Marcus. Cut deep. The pain is temporary. The power is eternal. The dagger felt cold in his palm. He pressed the blade to his left wrist, over the veins that pulsed with his mortal, limited blood. One cut, that's all it would take. One cut to open the door. He thought of High Magister Drathan, who'd signed his expulsion papers with barely concealed satisfaction. He thought of his fellow mages who'd whispered behind his back, called him unstable, dangerous, unpredictable. He thought of every slight, every dismissal, every time his brilliance had been called recklessness. Marcus cut deep. The blood welled up immediately, darker than it should be, flowing with unusual warmth down his arm. It dripped onto the salt circle, and where it touched, the salt began to glow with a sickly green luminescence. The candle's flames turned from orange to emerald, casting writhing shadows that seemed to have too many limbs. The pain was extraordinary. It wasn't just the physical cut, though that burned like acid, but something deeper, something in his chest, in his soul, screaming that this was wrong, that he could still stop, that he could still... The portal opened. It wasn't a dramatic tear in reality like he'd seen in the books. It was subtle, almost gentle, a shimmer in the air between the candle flames like heat distortion on a summer day. But through that shimmer, Marcus could see somewhere else, a sky of endless green flame, mountains of obsidian and bone, rivers that flowed with molten corruption. And stepping through that shimmer came something that made every nerve in Marcus's body scream to run. The demon was tall, easily 8 feet, with skin the color of arterial blood. Horns curved back from a face that was somehow both beautiful and utterly alien. Its eyes were pools of liquid fire, and when it smiled, Marcus saw teeth that looked like they were carved from volcanic glass. It wore no clothing, but its body was adorned with brands and scars that formed patterns, sigils that hurt to look at directly, that seemed to writhe and shift when observed. "Marcus Thornweave," the demon said, and its voice was the voice that had whispered to him, but now given terrible substance. "I am Zargul the Renderer, Underlord of the Third Circle, speaker for the Legion's will. You have called, and I have answered. You know what we offer. You know what we require." Marcus tried to speak, but his throat had gone dry. The demon's presence filled the cavern, made the air thick and hard to breathe. The smell was overwhelming. Sulfur and burning flesh and something sweet that made his stomach turn. "Your soul," Zargul continued, taking a step closer. The ground where it walked cracked and blackened. "Freely given, bound to the Legion for all eternity. In return, you will wield fell magic. The power of the Burning Crusade itself will flow through your veins. You will transcend your mortal limitations. You will become more." Marcus's voice came out as a rasp. "I accept." The demon's smile widened. "You don't understand what you're accepting, mortal. But you will. Oh, you will." Zargul reached out with one clawed hand, and Marcus found himself unable to move as those fingers, hot enough to make the air shimmer, touched his chest, right over his heart. The demon pushed, not physically but spiritually, and Marcus felt something inside him tear. It wasn't painful at first. It was almost a relief, like removing a splinter he'd carried his whole life. Then the burning started. Green fire erupted from the point of contact, spreading through Marcus's body like wildfire through dry grass. It raced along his veins, consumed his organs, set every nerve aflame. He screamed, a sound that echoed through the cavern and seemed to go on forever. But Zargul didn't remove its hand. The demon held firm, pushing deeper, and Marcus felt something fundamental being torn from the core of his being. His soul. He could feel it leaving, could feel the essence of what made him Marcus Thornweave. His memories, his personality, his very self, being drawn out like thread from a spool. It hurt in ways that physical pain couldn't compare to. It was the hurt of losing yourself, of being unmade at the most basic level. And then, in the space where his soul had been, the demon poured something else. Fell energy. It was like drinking molten metal. The power flooded into the void where his soul had resided, filling every empty space, expanding until Marcus thought his body would burst apart from the pressure. The energy was chaos given form. Destruction. Entropy. The heat death of universes condensed into liquid fire. It wanted to consume, to corrupt, to destroy everything it touched. It wanted to burn the world, and Marcus was its vessel. When Zargul finally withdrew its hand, Marcus collapsed to the ground, gasping. His body was smoking, wisps of green vapor rising from his skin. He looked down at his hands and saw that they were glowing faintly with emerald light. The veins beneath his skin pulsed with visible energy, tracing patterns up his arms. "Stand," Zargul commanded. Marcus stood. He didn't mean to obey. The thought of standing hadn't even formed in his mind. But his body responded to the demon's will as if it were his own. Terror spiked through him, but it was distant, muffled, as if his emotions were coming from somewhere far away. You are ours now, the demon said, circling him slowly. Your soul resides in Mardum, the shattered abyss. It is kept in a vessel of crystallized torment, where it will remain for all eternity. You will serve the Legion until the universe itself ends. You will corrupt, destroy, and consume in our name. And if you ever try to break your oath, Zargul gestured, and suddenly Marcus could see it. Could see his own soul, a glowing blue sphere trapped in a green crystal prison. He could see demons tormenting it, tearing pieces away, and watching them regenerate only to be torn again. He could feel every moment of that agony, every second of torment, all compressed into a single instant of absolute suffering. You will experience that. Forever. Do you understand? Yes, Marcus whispered. The word came automatically. He couldn't have said no if he'd tried. Good. The demon's expression softened slightly, almost paternal. Now, let me teach you what you've become. The first lesson was fire. Zargul took Marcus to the surface, meant to a grove near Westfall, where moonlight filtered through dead trees. The demon gestured to a rabbit that was nibbling grass at the edge of the clearing, oblivious to the predators nearby. Destroy it, Zargul commanded. Marcus raised his hand. The same hand that had once channeled careful, controlled arcane missiles. He felt the feel energy respond instantly, eagerly, like a hunting dog released from its leash. Green flames erupted from his palm, a torrent of corrupting fire that didn't just burn the rabbit, but unmade it. The creature didn't have time to scream. It simply ceased to exist, its matter converted directly into ash and fell energy that dissipated into the air. The tree behind where the rabbit had been wasn't as lucky. The flames hit it and spread, but this fire didn't consume wood. It consumed life itself. The tree's bark blackened and cracked. Its leaves shriveled and fell. In seconds, a healthy oak was reduced to a twisted dead husk that looked like it had been dead for decades. Marcus stared at what he'd done. The power had been effortless. No incantation, no focus, no careful channeling, just will and destruction. Part of him, the part that remembered being a researcher, a scholar, was horrified. But another part, a growing part that felt more and more like the real him, was exhilarated. That was barely a fraction of what you can do, Zargul said. The Fel is destruction made manifest. It consumes life and converts it to energy. The more you destroy, the more powerful you become. There is no limit, Marcus. No ceiling. Only endless growth through endless destruction. What about control? Marcus asked. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Deeper, with an edge that hadn't been there before. The Kirin Tor taught that magic requires discipline, structure. The Kirin Tor crippled you with their rules, Zargul interrupted. Fel magic is pure will made real. You want something destroyed? Will it? You want something corrupted? Will it? You want to reshape reality itself? The demon leaned close, its breath hot on Marcus's face. Will it hard enough? And it will be done. The second lesson was corruption. They traveled. Marcus wasn't sure how. Space simply seemed to fold around them. To a farmstead near Goldshire. A family lived there. A farmer, his wife, 2 children. They were sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware that damnation stood in their yard. Choose one, Zargul said casually. Corrupt them. Show them the Legion's gift. Marcus felt his stomach turn. They're innocent. They haven't. Innocence is weakness, the demon said, and for the first time its voice held an edge of impatience. Guilt is weakness. Morality is the chain that bound you, Marcus. We've broken that chain. Now prove you're worthy of freedom. Marcus looked at the farmhouse. Through the window he could see the father sleeping, one arm around his wife. They looked peaceful, content. Everything Marcus had never been. The feel energy inside him stirred, responding to his emotions. Jealousy, resentment, rage. All the feelings he'd suppressed for years bubbled up, and the feel amplified them, fed on them, transformed them into power. He raised his hand. Green energy coalesced around his fingers, but this time, it wasn't fire. It was something more insidious. A mist that drifted through the air, passed through the walls of the farmhouse like they weren't there. Marcus could feel it entering the sleeping man's dreams, curling around his thoughts, whispering promises of power and glory. "You're wasting your life," the corruption whispered in the farmer's ear. "Breaking your back for copper coins. Your children will inherit dirt. But there's another way, a better way. Power beyond your imagination, if only you're brave enough to take it." Marcus watched through his magical sight as the corruption took root. The farmer's dreams turned dark, violent. He saw himself leading an army, taking what he wanted, burning those who opposed him. The corruption fed on those thoughts, amplified them, twisted them. In his sleep, the farmer smiled. When morning came, he would wake changed. The corruption would grow, day by day, until he became someone who would eventually hear the same whisper Marcus had heard. The cycle would continue. "Good," Zargul said, and Marcus felt a warm rush of something. Approval? Pride? It felt good, and that scared him more than anything else had so far. "You're learning, but these are basic exercises. The true test comes when you face those who would stop you." The third lesson was combat. Zargul took Marcus to a clearing where a night elf sentinel stood watch. She was young, alert, her bow at the ready and her eyes scanning the forest. When she saw Marcus emerge from the shadows, saw the fel glow in his eyes and the corruption radiating from his skin, she drew her bow without hesitation. "Demon worshipper," she shouted, "you'll die for your—" Marcus didn't let her finish. The fel energy responded to his will before he'd even formed conscious thought. A bolt of green lightning erupted from his hand, faster than her arrow, striking her in the chest. The sentinel screamed, but not from pain. From rage and horror as she felt the corruption entering her body, trying to claim her as it had claimed Marcus. But she was strong. Elven discipline and thousands of years of civilization gave her tools Marcus hadn't possessed. She fought the corruption, pushed it back through sheer force of will. She drew another arrow, this one glowing with cleansing moonfire, and loosed it at Marcus's heart. He didn't dodge, didn't need to. The feel energy around him solidified into a barrier, a shield of pure entropic force. The blessed arrow struck the shield and simply ceased to exist, its holy magic consumed and converted into more fel power that flowed back into Marcus. "Your light has no power here," Marcus heard himself say, and his voice was wrong, layered with echoes that came from somewhere deeper than his throat. "You fight entropy itself. You might as well fight at the heat death of the universe." He advanced on her, and with each step, reality seemed to decay around him. Grass withered and died beneath his feet. The air shimmered with toxic heat. The sentinel fell back, still firing arrows, each one disintegrating against his shield. "Please," she gasped when her back hit a tree. "Please, there's still time. You can still turn back. Elune offers empty promises," Marcus said. He placed his hand on the tree beside her head, and the ancient oak died instantly, its life force flowing into him like wine. "The Legion offers truth, power, transcendence. The Legion offers damnation," the sentinel spat. "You've sold yourself to—" Marcus touched her forehead. Gently, almost tenderly. Fel corruption poured from his fingers, overwhelming her defenses through sheer volume. He watched her eyes, those beautiful amber eyes, fill with green fire. Watched her mouth open in a scream that turned into a laugh. Watched herself, everything she'd been, burn away, leaving only hunger and rage. When he removed his hand, she collapsed to the ground, twitching. She'd survive. In a few hours, she'd wake up as something new. Something that would hunt her former sisters with the same dedication she'd once used to protect them. Marcus felt nothing looking at her. The horror he should have felt was distant, abstract. But the power, the intoxicating rush of corrupting someone so pure, that was immediate and real. "Excellent," Zargul said, materializing beside him. "You've taken your first true steps on the Legion's path, but you're still thinking like a mortal. Destroying one elf, corrupting one farmer. These are drops in an ocean. The Legion thinks bigger. We think in terms of worlds, civilizations, reality itself." The demon placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. a gesture that would have burned away his flesh a few hours ago, but now felt almost comfortable. "Let me show you what we've really given you." Zargul brought Marcus to a place between places, a pocket of twisted reality where the fel was so concentrated it had physical weight. The sky was green fire. The ground was made of crystallized screams. In the distance, Marcus could see shapes moving, demons beyond counting, an army that stretched to the horizon and beyond. "The Burning Legion," Zargul said, gesturing to the assembled host. 10,000 worlds have fallen before us. 10,000 civilizations reduced to ash and memory. And this?" The demon laughed. "This is merely one vanguard of one division of one legion among thousands." Marcus's mind couldn't comprehend the scale. The numbers didn't make sense. His human brain kept trying to reduce it to something manageable, something understandable. But it was like trying to count stars. "We've been waging the burning crusade since before your sun ignited," Zargul continued. "We will continue until the last light in the universe is extinguished. Every world we consume makes us stronger. Every soul we claim adds to our legion. We are inevitable, Marcus. We are entropy made conscious. We are the end of all things." "Why?" Marcus asked. The question came from some part of him that still remembered being human, that still needed purpose beyond destruction. "Why destroy everything? What's the point?" Zargul turned to him, and for the first time, Marcus saw something in those fiery eyes that might have been honesty. "Because existence itself is flawed," the demon said. "The universe is chaos imperfectly ordered, light and dark in eternal, meaningless conflict. The Legion serves Sargeras, the Dark Titan, and Sargeras understands the truth, that the universe would be better unmade, that the only true order is entropy, that the kindest thing we can do for all living things is end their suffering, by ending existence itself. That's—" Marcus struggled to find words. "That's insane." "Is it?" Zargul gestured to the army. "Look at them, Marcus. Demons from 1,000 species, 1,000 worlds. Each one was once something else, a mortal like you who saw the truth and accepted their role in the grand design. They've transcended flesh, transcended death, transcended meaning. They are eternal in service to the inevitable, just as you are now." Marcus looked at the demons, really looked at them. He saw creatures that might have once been elves, their bodies twisted into new and terrible forms. He saw things that resembled humans if humans had been put through a meat grinder and reassembled by someone who didn't quite understand anatomy. He saw monsters beyond description, amalgamations of species he couldn't identify. Each one was bound to the Legion. Each one had sold their soul, just as he had. "You're wondering if you made a mistake," Zargul said, reading his thoughts, or perhaps just his face. "You're wondering if there's a way out. There isn't, Marcus. Your soul is ours. But let me ask you this. Do you feel weaker now than you did before? More limited? More afraid?" Marcus considered. The power thrumming through his veins was beyond anything he'd ever imagined. Where arcane magic had required study, preparation, careful channeling, the feel responded instantly to his will. He could feel it now, the potential to level mountains, to boil seas, to crack the world itself if he desired. And the fear, the constant anxiety that had plagued his entire life, the worry about failure, about not being good enough, about dying unloved and forgotten, it was gone, burned away. He knew what he was now. He knew his purpose. There was a strange comfort in that certainty. "No," Marcus admitted. "I feel free." "Exactly," Zargul smiled. "The Legion doesn't enslave, Marcus. We liberate. We free you from the tyranny of mortality, from the burden of choice, from the weight of conscience. You are pure now. Pure will, pure power, pure purpose. Isn't that better than the confused, frightened thing you were before?" Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to say that humanity, even with all its flaws, was worth preserving. That fear and doubt were prices worth paying for love and hope and all those other abstract concepts the poets wrote about. But the words wouldn't come. The part of him that believed those things was getting smaller, quieter, drowning beneath the roar of feel energy that grew louder with every passing moment. Come, Zargul said. Your education continues. It's time you learned what you can truly do with the Legion's gifts. The fourth lesson was transformation. They returned to Azeroth, to a stretch of forest near Darkshore. It was beautiful in that way only ancient woodlands could be. Trees that had stood for thousands of years, their canopies so thick they blocked out the sun. Life thrived here. Birds, deer, sprites of nature dancing through clearings. It was everything the Legion hated. This forest has stood for 12,000 years, Zargul said. The Night Elves consider it sacred. The Druids maintain it. The wilds protect it. It is by any measure a bastion of life and natural order. The demon turned to Marcus. Destroy it, Marcus blinked. The whole forest? I can't. You can, Zargul interrupted. Stop thinking in terms of your old limitations. You have the power of the Legion flowing through you. The Fel doesn't tire. It doesn't deplete. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So I ask again, destroy this forest. Marcus extended his awareness, feeling the Fel energy within him. It was vast, an ocean he'd barely dipped his toes into. He could sense its hunger, its desire to consume, to corrupt, to transform. All he had to do was release it. He raised both hands and pushed. Fel energy exploded from his body in a wave of green fire. Where it touched the forest, corruption took root instantly. Trees that had weathered 10,000 years of storms died in seconds, their wood turning black and brittle. The grass beneath them didn't just wither, it transformed, becoming toxic. Thorned things that writhed like living creatures. The stream running through the forest turned to something thick and oily, a substance that burned the fish trying to swim in it. But that was just the beginning. The corruption spread like disease, each infected plant becoming a new source of Fel energy. The forest died in a cascade, a chain reaction of entropy that radiated outward from Marcus like ripples from a stone dropped in a pond. He could feel every death, every transformation, and each one fed power back into him. The sensation was indescribable. It was like being the center of a hurricane, like conducting an orchestra of destruction. Like being a god. Marcus laughed. He couldn't help it. The sound erupted from his chest, full and genuine, as he watched centuries of growth unmade in minutes. The Druids would weep when they saw this. The Night Elves would send their armies. Let them come. He'd unmake them too. Good, Zargul purred. Now you're beginning to understand. This is your purpose, Marcus. This is what you were always meant to be. Not a researcher cataloging spells in dusty libraries, but an agent of change, an avatar of transformation, a warlock. The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. Warlock. It had always been a curse word in the Kirin Tor, spat with disgust and fear. Warlocks were practitioners of the forbidden arts, those who traded their souls for field power. They were hunted, executed, their names struck from the records. He was one of them now. I prefer the term power broker, Marcus said, surprised by the levity in his own voice. The horror of what he'd just done, an ecological disaster that would take centuries to recover from, should have crushed him. But all he felt was satisfaction at a job well done. Call yourself whatever brings you comfort, Zargul said. The Legion has many servants with many titles. What matters is that you serve. And speaking of service, you have your first true assignment. The demon gestured, and a vision appeared in the corrupted air. A map of Azeroth, with several locations marked in pulsing green light. The Legion is gathering its strength for a new invasion, Zargul explained. We've attempted to conquer this world twice before and failed. This time will be different. This time we're preparing from within. Warlocks like you, scattered across the world, weakening the defenses, corrupting the defenders, opening doors for our arrival. What do you need me to do? Marcus asked. The question came automatically, unthinkingly. A week ago, the thought of helping demons invade his homeworld would have been unthinkable. Now it felt natural. Right. The logical next step. There's a monastery in Northshire Valley, Zargul said. The priests there train the next generation of healers and paladins, light wielders who would oppose the Legion. You will go there, infiltrate it, and corrupt it from within. Turn those who would be our greatest enemies into our servants. Can you do this? Marcus thought about it. The monastery would be well defended, with clerics who could detect corruption, paladins sworn to destroy demon worshippers. A week ago, it would have been suicide. But he wasn't what he was a week ago. Yes, Marcus said. I can do this. Zargul smiled, showing those glass teeth. Then go. And Marcus, enjoy yourself. The Legion values results, but we also appreciate artistry. Show me what you can create from their piety and hope. The monastery sat nestled in a valley, its white walls almost glowing in the afternoon sun. Marcus watched it from the tree line, his field sight allowing him to see the wards and blessings that protected the place. They were strong. Layers of holy magic woven over centuries, designed to repel demons and detect corruption. But they were designed to detect demons. Not what Marcus was. A human warlock whose corruption was entirely internal, contained within flesh and blood. He walked up to the main gate, making no effort to hide. 2 guards stood watch. Young men in the plain robes of initiates, their blessed maces hanging from their belts. Hold, one of them called out. State your business, traveler. I seek sanctuary, Marcus said, letting exhaustion color his voice. I've been traveling for weeks. I have coin to offer for food and a bed. The guards exchanged glances. This is a holy place of learning, not an inn. I know, Marcus said. He reached into his robe, slowly so they wouldn't be alarmed, and withdrew a worn book. It was a tome on healing magic he'd purchased in Stormwind before coming here. I'm a scholar. I hope to study your archives, learn from your masters. The ways of the light have always fascinated me. That was true, in its way. Light magic had always interested him, though now it interested him primarily as something to corrupt and pervert. The guards seemed to soften. Wait here. I'll fetch Brother Matthias. While he waited, Marcus took stock of the monastery. He counted at least 30 people within the walls. Priests, paladins, students. Each one was a potential victim, a potential servant for the Legion. The thought made him smile. Brother Matthias turned out to be an older man, gray-haired and kind-eyed, the sort of person who radiated gentle wisdom and compassion, the sort of person Marcus used to aspire to be. Welcome, traveler, Brother Matthias said, his voice warm. I'm told you wish to study with us? If you'll have me, Marcus said. I'm a researcher by trade. The healing arts are poorly understood in most of Azeroth. I'd hope to document your techniques. Perhaps contribute to the education of healers across the kingdom. It was a good lie, based in enough truth to be convincing. Scholars did occasionally visit the monastery for exactly this reason. Brother Matthias studied him for a long moment, and Marcus felt the older man's power brush against his aura. A gentle probe, checking for darkness. Marcus had prepared for this. He let the priest sense what appeared to be a normal human soul, tired and travel-worn, but fundamentally good. The field corruption was there, but he'd wrapped it in layers of mundane thoughts and emotions, hidden deep where casual inspection wouldn't find it. You seem sincere, Brother Matthias finally said. We have guest quarters in the East Wing. You're welcome to stay and observe our work. All we ask is that you respect our practices and keep the silence during evening prayers. Of course, Marcus said, bowing his head. Thank you for your generosity. He was in. The first 3 days, Marcus simply observed. He attended their morning prayers, watching the way they called down the light. He sat in on healing classes, taking notes as priests demonstrated how to close wounds and cure diseases. He broke bread with them, listened to their stories, learned their names and dreams, and all the while he studied their defenses, learned the patterns of their wards, identified the strongest and weakest among them, planned. On the 4th night, he made his move. Brother Elias was a young priest, barely 18, full of idealism and faith. He was also lonely. Marcus had seen it in the way the boy looked at the other students, the yearning for connection that went unfulfilled. He was an outsider even among his peers. Too earnest, too intense, perfect. Marcus found him in the library after evening prayers, studying by candlelight. Brother Elias, Marcus said softly, so as not to startle him. Forgive the intrusion. I couldn't sleep and thought I might find something to read. The boy looked up, surprised but pleased. Master Thornweave, Of course, please join me. I was just reviewing the litany of resilience. It's a blessing that strengthens the body against disease, but I can't quite master the cadence. Marcus sat across from him, genuinely studying the text. It was fascinating in its way. The light was fundamentally opposed to the FL, yet both operated on similar principles. Both required will and conviction. Both transformed reality through belief, made manifest. Try emphasizing the third syllable, Marcus suggested. The light responds to confidence. If you hesitate, even slightly, the blessing falters. Brother Elias tried it, and Marcus felt a small pulse of holy energy ripple outward. Weak, unfocused, but genuine. The boy had potential. That's better, Elias said, grinning. How did you— Oh, right. You studied magic at the Kirin Tour. A lifetime ago, Marcus said, and that was truer than the boy could know. Tell me, Elias, why did you choose the priesthood? It's a hard path, full of sacrifice. The question opened a floodgate. Elias talked about his calling, his desire to help people, his dream of becoming a great healer. But beneath the noble words, Marcus heard the insecurity, the doubt, the fear that he wasn't good enough, that he'd fail, that he'd disappoint the masters who'd invested so much in his training. Marcus recognized those fears. He'd carried them himself once. You're worried you'll never be strong enough, Marcus said softly. Elias's eyes widened. Yes. How did you know? Because I felt the same way, Marcus said. It wasn't even a lie. The Kirin Tor expected perfection. Every spell had to be flawless. Every experiment controlled. I drove myself to exhaustion trying to meet their standards, and it was never enough. What did you do? Elias asked, leaning forward. Marcus smiled. Here was the hook. I found a different path, one where my ambition was celebrated, not punished, where my potential was nurtured instead of caged. He paused as if considering whether to continue. Would you like me to show you? The boy should have been suspicious, should have recognized the predatory undertone in Marcus's offer, but he was young, desperate, and tired of failing. All the ingredients necessary for damnation. Show me what? Elias asked. Marcus placed his hands on the table between them, palms up. Give me your hands. Let me show you what real power feels like. Elias hesitated for only a moment before placing his hands in Marcus's. The contact was all Marcus needed. He let a trickle of feel energy flow through the connection. Just a taste, barely enough to notice. But it was enough. Elias gasped. Marcus watched the boy's eyes widen as he felt the power. Pure, intoxicating, limitless power flowing through him. For a moment, just a moment, the priest channeled feel energy instead of light, and in that moment, he felt what he could be, what he could become. What was that? Elias whispered, pulling his hands back. But his eyes remained fixed on Marcus's, hungry and afraid in equal measure. That was potential, Marcus said. The power you've always had inside you, but were never taught to access. The masters here would call it forbidden. They'd say it's dangerous, corrupting. But is it really corruption if it simply lets you be who you were always meant to be? I don't— Elias shook his head. But he didn't leave. Didn't call for help. Brother Matthias says— Brother Matthias is afraid, Marcus interrupted gently. They're all afraid. That's why they have so many rules, so many restrictions. They're terrified that if you discover what you're truly capable of, you won't need them anymore. It was a masterful lie, all the more effective because Marcus believed it himself now. He watched the seeds of doubt take root in Elias's mind, watched the boy's faith begin to crack. Think about it, Marcus said, standing. If you want to learn more, I'm in the East Wing. But Elias, he paused at the library door. Don't tell the masters about this. They wouldn't understand. They never do. Marcus left the boy there, trembling with desire and fear. The first crack in the monastery's foundation. Over the next week, that crack became a chasm. Elias came to Marcus's room that very night, and the next, and the next. Each visit, Marcus taught him a little more, showed him a little more power. The fell corruption took root slowly, carefully, almost tenderly. Marcus was learning that brutal force wasn't always necessary. Sometimes the most effective corruption was the gentle kind, the sort that made you complicit. made you choose darkness one small step at a time until you looked back and couldn't remember where the light had gone. But Elias was just the beginning. Through him, Marcus identified others. Sister Avelina, who resented being passed over for promotion. Brother Kendrick, who secretly hated the poor and sick he was sworn to serve. Initiate Tom, whose faith had always been more about fear than love. Each one had cracks. Each one had doubts. Marcus found those cracks and poured feel energy into them like acid into stone. Within 2 weeks, a dozen of the monastery's priests and students had been touched by corruption. They didn't know it yet. The fel was still dormant, waiting. But Marcus could see it with his fel sight, a network of green cancer spreading through the monastery's spiritual infrastructure. When the time came, he'd activate it all at once. The blessed sanctuary would become a temple of corruption overnight. But Brother Matthias was growing suspicious. Marcus noticed it in the way the old priest watched him during meals, the way holy wards appeared around Marcus's room overnight, the way conversation stopped when he entered. Matthias suspected something, but he couldn't prove it. Marcus had been too careful, had left no evidence. Every student he'd corrupted still appeared pure to casual inspection. On the 18th night, Matthias came to Marcus's room. "Walk with me," the old priest said. It wasn't a request. They walked the monastery walls in silence, looking out over the valley. The moon was full, painting everything in silver light that should have been beautiful but made Marcus's skin itch. Light, in all its forms, was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. "You've been busy," Matthias finally said. "I don't know what you mean," Marcus replied carefully. "Don't lie to me, boy." The priest's voice was hard now, all pretense of kindness gone. "I've served the light for 40 years. I know darkness when I see it, even when it hides itself well. You've corrupted them, my students, my children. I can't prove it yet. You've hidden it too well, but I know." Marcus considered lying further, considered fleeing. But looking at the old priest, he felt a strange sort of respect. This man had seen through every deception, had sensed the truth through faith alone. "You're right," Marcus said. "I've corrupted them, and by tomorrow I'll have corrupted the rest. This monastery will fall, just like Darkshore fell, just like everything will fall. The Legion is coming, Matthias, and nothing you do will stop it." The old priest closed his eyes, pain clear on his weathered face. "Why? Why do this? You were a scholar once, a good man. What happened?" "I learned the truth," Marcus said. "That goodness is weakness, that faith is delusion, that the only real power in this universe is the power to destroy." "That's not truth," Matthias said sadly. "That's damnation speaking. But there's still time, Marcus. Let me help you. The light can heal even corruption. We can save your soul." For a moment, just a brief, flickering moment, Marcus felt something. A memory of who he'd been, a ghost of the man who'd believed in redemption and second chances. Part of him wanted to accept, wanted to kneel and beg forgiveness, wanted to be saved. Then the fetal energy inside him stirred, crushing that weakness, and Marcus laughed. "My soul is gone, old man. It's sitting in a crystal prison in a hell dimension, being tortured by demons. There's no saving me. There's only power, and I have more of it than you can imagine." He raised his hand, and green fire danced between his fingers. "You can't stop me, Matthias. Even if you kill me now, the corruption is already in place. Those I've touched will spread it. Your monastery is already lost." Matthias looked at him with something like pity. "Then I have no choice." The priest drew a mace from beneath his robes, a weapon Marcus hadn't known he carried. It blazed with the holy light so bright it hurt to look at directly. Matthias was old, but he'd been a paladin before taking priestly vows, and that training hadn't faded. "I won't let you turn this place into a haven for demons," Matthias said. "Even if I must kill you. May the light forgive me." He charged. The fight was brief and brutal. Matthias was skilled, his mace striking with precision that spoke of decades of training. But Marcus had the feel, and the fel had no limits. He didn't block the mace. He let it hit his fel shield, watched the holy weapon crack against entropy, made solid. He didn't dodge the follow-up strikes. He simply regenerated the damage, Feel energy knitting flesh back together faster than the light could tear it. "You see," Marcus said, catching the mace in his bare hand. The holy weapon seared his palm, but he didn't let go. "Your light can't hurt me." "Not really. I'm beyond pain now. Beyond death. I'm evolution itself." He squeezed, and the blessed mace shattered. 40 years of prayer and consecration unmade in an instant. Matthias fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Light preserve us," he whispered. "What have you become?" "What I was always meant to be," Marcus said. He placed his hand on the old priest's head, gently, almost tenderly. "And now you'll become it too." "No," Matthias gasped. I'll die first." "You don't understand," Marcus said softly. "I'm not giving you a choice." He pushed. The corruption that had taken Elias days to fully embrace, that had required careful manipulation and seduction, Marcus simply forced into Matthias all at once. It was like drowning a man in oil and setting him ablaze. The old priest screamed, a sound that echoed across the valley, a sound that woke every sleeping soul in the monastery. But by the time they arrived, it was too late. Marcus stood over the fallen priest, who was writhing on the ground, his body rejecting the corruption, even as his soul was being torn apart. Around them, the monastery's stones began to crack. The wards and blessings that had protected this place for centuries shattered like glass. And from Marcus's body, waves of feel energy radiated outward, activating all the dormant corruption he'd planted. The priests and students he'd touched over the past weeks began to scream as the fel awakened within them. Some tried to resist, calling on the light for aid. But the light couldn't hear them anymore. They'd been marked by corruption, and the light had abandoned them. Marcus watched dispassionately as his handiwork unfolded. This was what the Legion had made him for. This was his purpose. And as the monastery burned with green flames and the faithful became faithful to a new cause, he felt nothing but satisfaction. Zargul appeared beside him, manifesting from the fel-saturated air. "Beautiful," the demon said, surveying the destruction. "You've exceeded expectations, Marcus. This was supposed to take months. You did it in weeks." "They made it easy," Marcus said. "Everyone has doubts. Everyone has weaknesses. You just have to find them and exploit them." "Spoken like a true agent of the Legion," Zargul said approvingly. "You've earned a reward. What would you like? Power? Knowledge? Perhaps a command of your own?" Marcus thought about it. The fel energy thrumming through his veins was already more power than he'd ever dreamed of possessing. Knowledge. He was learning new applications of fel magic daily. Command? The thought was tempting, but he realized he didn't want to lead. He wanted to destroy, to corrupt, to unmake the world that had rejected him. "I want more," Marcus said simply. "More power, more targets. Show me how to become more than I am." Zargul's smile widened. "Ambitious. I like it. Very well. Your next lesson awaits. But first," the demon gestured to the corrupted priests now gathering around them, their eyes glowing with a feel fire, their bodies already beginning to twist into new forms. "You should say goodbye to your disciples. They'll be going to Mardum for transformation. When you see them again, they won't be human anymore. They'll be something better. Something perfect." Marcus looked at Elias, the boy he'd corrupted first, who'd trusted him, who'd believed his lies. The young priest's body was already changing, his skin darkening to red, small horns beginning to push through his scalp. In a few days, he'd be a demon, a servant of the Legion for all eternity. Marcus felt no guilt, no remorse. The capacity for those emotions had burned away. "Goodbye, Elias," Marcus said. "Thank you for your service." The boy, the thing that had been a boy, smiled, showing teeth that were already sharpening. "Thank you, Master, for showing me the truth." Then the Legion came for them. Portals opening in the fel-saturated air, and the newly corrupted were drawn through to begin their transformations. Soon the monastery was empty, except for Marcus, Zargul, and the corpses of those who'd resisted until death. "Come," Zargul said. "Your education continues. There's someone who wants to meet you." The next portal didn't take Marcus to Azeroth or to the space between spaces where he'd seen the Legion's armies. It took him somewhere else entirely. A throne room carved from obsidian and bone, lit by rivers of lava that flowed through channels in the floor. The heat was incredible, enough to boil blood, but Marcus's feel-infused body barely noticed. On a throne of skulls sat a creature that made Zargul look small and insignificant. It was massive, 15 feet tall at least, with skin like molten stone and wings that seemed to be made of pure shadow. Its horns were like scimitars, and its eyes were voids, windows into entropy itself. "Kneel," Zargul whispered urgently. "You're in the presence of Archimond the Defiler, supreme commander of the Legion's forces." Marcus knelt, not because Zargul had told him to, but because his body did it automatically, instinctively recognizing the vast difference in power between himself and the thing on the throne. "Marcus Thornweave," Archimond said, and his voice was like continents grinding together. "The warlock who corrupted an entire monastery in 3 weeks. Impressive. Zargul speaks highly of your potential." "I serve the Legion," Marcus said, keeping his eyes down. "Do you?" Archimond leaned forward, and Marcus felt pressure like being at the bottom of an ocean. "Tell me, warlock, do you truly serve, or do you simply enjoy the power we've given you? Do you believe in the burning crusade, or do you merely use us to fulfill your petty revenge fantasies?" It was a test. Marcus knew it was a test. The wrong answer would mean death, or worse, an eternity of torment in martyrdom. "I don't know what I believe," Marcus said truthfully. "A month ago I believed in the Kirin Tor, in order, in knowledge for its own sake. That belief was shattered when they cast me out. Now I believe in power, in the strength to shape reality according to my will. If the Legion can give me that, if the Burning Crusade is the path to ultimate power, then yes, I believe in it. I serve because serving makes me stronger." Silence. Then Archimond laughed, a sound like avalanches. "Honest," the Demon Lord roared. "I like this one, Zargul. Most warlocks pretend to believe in our cause, mouth words about entropy and the grand design. But this one," Archimond's void eyes fixed on Marcus, "this one simply wants what all mortals want, to be more than he was. Refreshingly simple." The pressure eased, and Marcus could breathe again. "Very well, Marcus Thornweave," Archimond said. "I accept your service, not because I believe your loyalty is secure, but because I believe your ambition is limitless. And ambition, properly directed, is more useful than loyalty. You've proven you can corrupt and destroy. Now I'll teach you to create." "Create?" Marcus looked up despite himself. "The Legion destroys. That's what fell magic does." "Narrow thinking," Archimond said. "Destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. We destroy the old to make way for the new. We corrupt life to create demons. We burn worlds to forge stronger ones. You think the Legion is simply nihilistic chaos? No, warlock. We are the most ambitious architects in existence. We're rebuilding the universe itself." The Demon Lord stood, and reality seemed to bend around him. "Come, I'll show you what I mean." Archimond led Marcus, Zargul following silently behind, to a balcony that overlooked something that Marcus's mind struggled to comprehend. It was a world, but wrong. The sky was green flame. The oceans were fell energy. The mountains were made of crystallized corruption. And covering every surface were demons, billions of them, building vast structures that defied geometry and reason. "This was once a world much like Azeroth," Archimond explained. "Green fields, blue skies, mortal civilizations. We came. We conquered. We consumed. But we didn't leave it a dead husk. We transformed it, made it better, made it perfect. This world now produces demons. Its very essence generates warriors for the Legion. In 1,000 years it will birth more demons than died in its conquest. We traded finite mortal lives for infinite immortal ones. Is that not creation?" Marcus stared at the twisted world. It was horrifying. It was beautiful. It was everything wrong with the universe made manifest. And part of him, the part that still remembered being human, wanted to weep. But a larger part, The part that was becoming more dominant every day wanted to learn how to do it himself. How? Marcus asked. How do you transform an entire world? The same way you transformed a monastery, Archimon said. One corruption at a time, one choice at a time, one soul at a time, but scaled up, magnified, perfected. That's what I'm offering to teach you, Marcus Thornweave. Not just how to corrupt individuals, but how to corrupt civilization itself, how to transform worlds. It was an offer that should have filled Marcus with horror. Instead, he felt excitement stirring in his chest. This was power beyond anything he'd imagined. Not just personal strength, but the ability to reshape reality itself on a planetary scale. I want to learn, Marcus said. Archimon smiled. I thought you might. Very well. Your education begins now. But I must warn you, the price of this knowledge is steep. To learn to transform worlds, you must first be transformed yourself. Your human flesh is insufficient for what I'm going to teach you. You'll need to become more. What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean, you'll need to undergo the same transformation your disciples are experiencing, Archimon said. You'll need to become a demon. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Becoming a demon meant surrendering the last vestiges of his humanity, meant transforming his body into something that could never pass for human again, meant crossing a line from which there was absolutely no return. Marcus thought about it for perhaps 10 seconds. Do it, he said. Archimon gestured, and Zargul stepped forward, producing a vial of something that glowed with intense green light. It was fel energy in liquid form, condensed to such purity that it hurt to look at directly. Drink this, Zargul said. The transformation will take 3 days. It will be the most painful experience of your existence. Many don't survive it. But if you do, the demon smiled. You'll be glorious. Marcus took the vial. His hand didn't shake. He'd come too far to hesitate now. He uncorked it and drank. The liquid fire traced a line of agony down his throat. Then it hit his stomach, and the real pain began. Marcus screamed for 3 days. His body was breaking down and rebuilding itself at the cellular level. Bones lengthened and reshaped. Skin hardened into something between scales and armor. Internal organs he'd never needed before grew while others atrophied. Horns pushed through his skull. Agony beyond description as they slowly, inexorably forced their way through bone and flesh. But the physical transformation was nothing compared to the spiritual one. Whatever remained of his soul, the tiny fragment that hadn't been claimed by the Legion, the last piece of Marcus Thornweave the man, burned away completely. In its place, something new emerged. Something that had never been human and never could be again. When the transformation finally ended, Marcus looked at himself in a pool of still lava. The reflection showed a creature from nightmare. 7 feet tall, skin the color of old blood, eyes that glowed with field fire. Horns curved back from his skull like a ram's. His hands ended in claws that could tear through steel. Fel energy radiated from his body, invisible waves, distorting the air around him. He was beautiful. Welcome back, Archimon said. Marcus, he still thought of himself as Marcus, even though the name felt increasingly inadequate, turned to face the Demon Lord. How do you feel? Powerful, Marcus said, and his voice had changed too. Deeper now, layered with harmonics that shouldn't exist. I feel complete. You are complete, Archimon confirmed. You're no longer a warlock playing at power. You're a demon, a true servant of the Legion. And now that you have the form, I can teach you the function. Yiobim. The lessons that followed made everything Marcus had learned before seem like children's games. Archimon taught him to see ley lines, the magical currents that flowed through worlds, and how to corrupt them. How to turn a planet's own life force against it. How to identify a world's keystone species and drive them to extinction, causing ecological collapse. How to corrupt not just individuals, but entire cultures, twisting their values and beliefs until they invited demons in willingly. He learned to create portals not just between places, but between dimensions, to summon demons from the nether and bind them to his will, to craft fell crystals that could amplify corruption across vast distances, to inscribe runes that would corrupt anything they touched for generations. But the most important lesson was about scale. Mortal warlocks think small, Archimond explained. They corrupt a village, summon an imp, throw around some fire. You must think bigger. Every action should advance the Legion's goals. Every corruption should cascade. Every demon you summon should summon more. You're not just a warrior. You're a catalyst, a spark that starts a wildfire that consumes entire continents. Marcus absorbed it all, his demon mind capable of processing information at speeds his human brain never could have managed. He practiced on minor worlds, places the Legion had already conquered, but that needed final pacification. He refined his technique, learned from his failures, became more efficient. Months passed, or maybe years. Time was strange in the Nether. Marcus lost track of everything except his studies, his growing power, his increasing mastery of corruption on a civilizational scale. Then one day, Archimond summoned him. "You're ready," the Demon Lord said. "It's time to return to Azeroth. The invasion is coming. But first, we need the world softened, made vulnerable. You'll go back and continue what you started with that monastery. Corrupt their heroes, poison their leaders, turn their greatest defenders into weapons for our use." "How long do I have?" Marcus asked. "As long as you need," Archimond said. "The Legion is patient. We've been planning this invasion for 10,000 years. A few more decades makes no difference. What matters is that when we arrive, we find a world too broken to resist." Marcus nodded. He'd been waiting for this. For a chance to return to Azeroth, not as the failed mage who'd been cast out, but as an architect of apocalypse. "There's one more thing," Archimond said. "A gift for your service." The Demon Lord produced something. A staff carved from what looked like solidified corruption. This is Entropia, a weapon crafted by Sargeras himself in the early days of the Crusade. It amplifies fail magic 1,000-fold. In the hands of a skilled warlock, it can level cities. In your hands? Archimond smiled. It will level kingdoms. Marcus took the staff. Power flooded through him immediately, so much power that his transformed body barely managed to contain it. With this weapon, he was more than a demon. He was a force of nature, a walking apocalypse. "Thank you, my lord," Marcus said, bowing. "Don't thank me," Archimond replied. "Earn this gift. Return to Azeroth. Break it. And when the Legion arrives, I want to find a world so corrupted, so broken, that conquest is a formality. Can you do this?" Marcus smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Yes, my lord. I can do this." The portal opened in Duskwood, far from where he'd left Azeroth. Marcus stepped through, staff in hand, and took his first breath of his homeworld's air in. He wasn't sure how long. It smelled clean, pure, untainted by corruption. That would change. He could feel them immediately, the light wielders scattered across the continent. Paladins in their temples, priests in their sanctuaries, even druids sleeping in their barrows. Each one was a beacon of light in his fell sight, bright and pure and begging to be extinguished. But Marcus had learned patience, learned strategy. He wouldn't simply destroy them. That would unite them, make them stronger in their opposition. No, he would do what the Legion did best: divide them, corrupt them, turn them against each other so thoroughly that when the invasion came, they'd be too busy fighting themselves to fight demons. His first target was obvious: Stormwind, the jewel of the Alliance, seat of the king, home to the greatest concentration of heroes in the Eastern Kingdoms. If he could corrupt Stormwind, the rest of the continent would follow. Marcus walked through the forest, and where he passed, life died. Not dramatically. No explosions of fellfire, no obvious corruption. Just a subtle withering. Trees lost a few more leaves than they should. Animals became slightly more aggressive. The very air became a bit harder to breathe. Marcus was learning to make his corruption invisible, to make it seem like natural decay rather than demonic influence. By the time he reached Elwyn Forest, he'd left a trail of subtle corruption stretching for miles. Not enough to alarm anyone. Not enough to summon paladins. just enough to weaken the land's natural defenses, to create tiny cracks that would widen over time. Stormwind looked exactly as he remembered it. White stone towers reaching toward blue skies, flags snapping in the breeze, people going about their lives in blissful ignorance of the doom approaching them. Marcus stood at the gates, his demonic form hidden behind an illusion that made him appear as a simple traveler, and smiled. "I'm home," he said softly. Then he walked into the city to begin his greatest work. The corruption of Stormwind would take years. He'd need to infiltrate the nobility, the military, the church. He'd need to identify the kingdom's defenders and systematically break them, turn them, make them into weapons for the Legion. It would be his masterpiece. And when Archimond arrived to see a world ready for conquest, Marcus would stand before him not as a servant, but as an equal, a demon who'd accomplished what armies could not, the internal destruction of civilization itself. This was what it meant to sell your soul to the Burning Legion. Not just power, though the power was intoxicating. Not just immortality, though that too had its appeal. It meant becoming an engine of entropy, a cancer wearing human shape, a corruption that walked and talked and smiled while it unmade everything good in the world. Marcus had been human once, had believed in knowledge, in order, in the potential for morality and justice. That man was gone, burned away in field fire and demon blood. What remained was something the Kirin Tor had been right to fear, something that would make their worst nightmares look tame, something that would bring the Burning Legion to Azeroth one corrupted soul at a time. And as Marcus walked through Stormwind streets, already identifying his first victims, he felt nothing but satisfaction. This was what it was like to sell your soul to the Burning Legion.